All right, welcome to the cross contour line drawing for 8th grade. For this project, you are going to create a realistic cross contour drawing of an object focusing on line and composition with a watercolor wash. So here's an example of what this can look like. So this is watercolor paper, which you're going to use for this project. You're going to sketch it out with pencil. Then you're going to add a watercolor wash. So notice wash, you think of like laundry, clothes, lots of water. So you're going to take a little bit of watercolor paint and you're going to add a lot of water and you're just going to add some paint to the background of your piece. After it dries, you're going to add ink on top of it. Just adds a little something else to your piece. So we're going to study Leonardo da Vinci, Albrecht Dürer, and Jean Cos. So we're going to talk about them later, and your teacher can show you some of their artwork as well. So we're going to use pen and ink with your watercolor wash optional. Hopefully you have watercolor and watercolor paper at your school. If not, you can do this without it, but it looks really cool. So 8 by 10 would be a great size, or a lot of times the watercolor comes in 9 by 12, so that would be a great size as well. I'll write your rubrics here, and we'll go over this later in your self-evaluation class. This is some vocab that you need to know for this project, otherwise you're going to be a little bit lost. And when you look at these, you might think, I have no idea what that means, and that's okay, because you will learn by the end. For class 1, you're going to watch this video. You're going to brainstorm ideas. What object will you create, or person? Objects seem to work really well for this project, but you're in 8th grade. You can pick any subject matter you would like, but again, objects tend to work the best for this. And you're going to create 2 sketches altering the composition using the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds video is here, and these are just some examples of some sketches. So I decided for this project I was going to create an hourglass. So for my sketches, I sketched them in different compositions. So I zoomed in, zoomed out, really zoomed in, and then this way I turned my paper horizontally, or what we call landscape, to make it more interesting. You only have to do 2 sketches, but I added 4 here just so you could see some ideas. Notice I also practiced with the pen and ink here, just to kind of see what it would look like. You can also practice with watercolor in your sketchbook. Yes, you don't want to use watercolor on regular paper, but it will work as practice. And I've seen some people do some amazing watercolor pieces on regular paper, so it's kind of up to you how you decide to do that. So again, for class 1, you're going to watch this video, you're going to brainstorm ideas, and then you're going to take that one idea and create 2 sketches. All right, for class 2, you're going to practice with the media. So you're going to watch this video, and this is going to explain contour, cross contour, value, and line quality to you. And you're going to visually be able to see it, so it's going to be really helpful. So you're going to watch this, define these 4 words. You can do it in groups, individually, as a class. It's up to your teacher how you decide to do that. Then you're going to create a small, and this does not have to be big, small sphere, cone, and cylinder using cross contour lines and a pear. So I have some images here below to show you. So after you watch that video, you're going to create a sphere, a cone, and a cylinder using cross contour lines. So a contour line is just the outline. Cross contour lines are these lines. They kind of like create a grid, but they help define the form. They help make it look 3D because they curve with the outside or contour of the figure. So these 3 are going to help you just get an idea of contour lines. Notice this person did not use a ruler. The lines are a little bit messed up. That's okay. It's just practice getting the idea of where the line should go. Then you're going to do a pear. Notice I did this pear with just a regular pen, but I drew the outline, which is the contour, and then I added these lines, which are the cross contour lines that help define the form or make it look more 3D, like it's actually sitting there, and the vertical lines. And in your project, you don't have to put vertical and horizontal lines. You can pick and choose, it's just kind of getting the idea so you know how to do it. I also adjusted the line quality, which is the thinness or thickness of the lines. So in this area right here, it's lighter because that's where the light's coming from. So the line is just a regular pen thickness. I made the lines thicker as they get farther over here to kind of indicate that's where the shadow would be, or where the light is not reaching the object. So you're going to do sphere, cone, cylinder, and a pear. If you're feeling really advantageous and you want to challenge yourself, maybe also try the apple. It's a little trickier, but it's really fun as well to see how you can make those lines make it look real with just lines. It's really cool. So that is class 2. All right, class 3, you are going to be working on pen textures today. So you can use just cross contour lines, or you can also add pen textures to this. So depending on what you selected to draw for this project, you might need to use a whole bunch of different textures. You might need one. It just depends. So this is going to help you practice. So there's 9 textures here. You're going to pick 3 and create those in your sketchbook. So just draw a little square and then create your textures. So you can create texture with basically anything. And it's also a value scale where you have dark gradually getting to light. So that's going to be helpful too. So if I pick this one, this is scribbling. If I do lots of scribbling close together, it's dark. And then if I do less scribbling farther apart, it's a lighter value. Same thing with this one, it's stippling. Lots of dark dots close together, less dots farther apart into my lighter values. Same thing here with cross hatching. This cool pattern, these are just circles, lines. This is really cool if you decide to do a like a Vans shoe or something. That bottom piece looks really neat. But again, you can see this isn't a darker pen. They just added a thicker line with a line quality to make it look darker. So that's a way you can do that as well. So pick 3 of these, and then you're going to pick 1 sphere for practice. So I did this one with scribbling. So you can see you don't outline it with pen. Notice you can see where my pencil line was. You just are going to make sure that you use the texture. Lots of texture, less texture to make it look realistic. This would be cross hatching. And this would be stippling. Again, you do not want to draw the circle with pen. If you do, it's going to look flat no matter how good you do on the inside or the shadow. Okay? So you're going to pick 3 of these and 1 of these and do those in your sketchbook today for practice. All right, class 4, you're going to map out your final piece on watercolor paper, okay? It has to be on watercolor paper because you're going to use your watercolor wash and it's going to work better. So make sure you do it really, really light. Watercolor paper is pretty, think of it as like a thick paper towel. So you don't want to erase a ton or it'll get overworked. And then when you add your watercolor, it'll look really weird, okay? So draw it really light. You can always erase gently until you get it correct. Your pencil lines are going to stay this light. That's okay. If you make them too dark, they're not going to erase, or you're going to tear up your watercolor paper when you're erasing, and you're not going to add any pen. Today is just pencil. If you get done with this today, make sure that you have someone else check it because it's easier to change things today than after you add watercolor or pen. And if you get done, practice in your sketchbook adding different pen textures to your sketches. All right, class 5 is your watercolor wash. So you're going to watch the video below on how to create a watercolor wash. Think of it as a cool colored background for your piece. Now you have pencil on there, so you have to be careful. You kind of have one shot at this. So you also want to make sure that you don't make the paint too dark. Think of it as a wash. When you wash your hands, you wash clothes, whatever it is, you use lots of water. Right? So you want to use a little bit of paint and a lot of water, and that's what's going to create those light colors that you see here right in this image of the video. If it's too dark, you're going to cover your pencil lines and you're going to impact the image. You just want it to fade into the background. Okay, so after you watch this video, add your watercolor wash to your paper and you have to allow it to dry. It will take the rest of this class to dry, so you're going to want to place it on the drying rack or a counter, wherever your teacher tells you to place it to dry. Obviously, they can't be stacked on top of one another, and they're not going to be dry enough by the end of class for you to put in your sketchbook. So they need to be stored where they can dry. As it's drying, you can work on your sketches and practice with the media to try out those different textures to see what's going to work for your piece. All right, go ahead and get started with that for class 5. Class 6 through 8, you're going to add your lines today. So today you're going to begin adding your cross contour lines and pen textures to your watercolor paper that is dry. So again, make sure your paper's dry first. If it's wet, your pen's just going to bleed right in. If you're unsure of the line, do it in pencil first. And if you like it, ink it. If you don't like it, just erase it. So you can see with this one doesn't have the watercolor wash, but you can see how I started adding the cross contour lines to create the piece. Notice I didn't outline. I did that in my sketch, as you can see if you go above, and it doesn't look as good. Like you see right there where it's outlined, and then here where it's not, it looks better. So yeah, you might make a couple mistakes, but we just try to cover them up. It's no big deal. You probably wouldn't have noticed that if I didn't point it out to you. So, I started these with pencil just to make sure they were looking good, and then I added ink. I also, in my sketch, if you can see, we'll jump back up to this in this image right here. I know it's light for those of you in the back of the room, but I outlined where my highlights would be because I knew I was going to have a little bit of issue stopping and not going in the light areas as I was just creating line after line after line. So adding those outlined highlighted areas can help you stop and not get in your highlights because the highlights are really important for realism. And then of course I just erased the pencil line so you don't see those. It's just a guide to help you as you're working. And then of course this was an example, of kind of how you would start. It's pencil, watercolor, and then I started adding. And this one I just used only stippling, so it's only small dots to create the value and the image. Class 9, you're going to do your self-evaluation, and your teacher will walk you through this process. Your rubric is here. You'll write this in your sketchbook, and as you finish, you continue inking your piece. Class 10 and beyond, you're going to review the rubric at the start of class just to make sure you remember what you're doing, where you are, what things you're missing, and what you need to do to create the best piece you possibly can. Once you finish, sign it in the bottom right hand corner with the year, and then turn it in however your teacher has decided this process will take place. If you finish early, I know it's not October, but I have a really cool Inktober challenge for you that you may have heard of that first semester students were working on. So if you want to click on this, really awesome, something for you to work on, always work on getting better as an artist, and you can still post it. Here's an example of a tattoo gun to kind of show you a lot of different textures. So here's just a basic fill because I messed up an area, so I just filled. There's cross-hatching texture in there. These are just cross contour lines, cross-hatching, contour lines. So you have to pick the texture that works best for the area of the piece you're doing. So I like to show this one so you can kind of see one texture wouldn't have worked for this whole piece. So think about the textures that work best. Try them in your sketchbook first, make the mistakes there. That's what it's for. These are some other examples here that you guys can look at as a class. This one, the whole piece has the same line quality or thickness, so it looks flat, really cartoony. This one you can see with the line quality, some of it's thin and then some of it's thicker, and it just creates the illusion of it being a little bit more realistic or 3D with just a slight change in line quality. Here you can see the artist just outlined the hand, and then just by adding those cross contour lines, it makes it look much more realistic. And just a heads up, no, you cannot place your hand down, trace it, and do it as your project. No, that's too easy. Just throwing that out there in case you had that idea in your head. Here's some value scales if you're having trouble and you feel like you need to do some extra work or you're waiting for your piece to dry, whatever it is. Those work really well here. There's some more. And here's some really good quality examples. These are all 3 from Richmond County students. Here's a pepper, excuse me. You can see where they used left areas of light for the highlights, areas of dark. And this one, they used all contour lines and cross contour lines and then stippling in the shadow. They did a really good job with the violin. Notice the placement. Instead of it just being like straight up and down right in the middle of the paper, which is boring, cut some of it off and added this cool diagonal. Looks neat, great positive space, great negative space, great textures. And this one is a controller, so you can kind of see the different textures they used for the different sections of the piece, which looked really neat. And here's some other examples, and then some work from the artists that you're going to study for this project, so your teacher can kind of walk you through these, maybe at the start of classes, things like that, just kind of talk about them a little bit. And this is the website for Sean Koss. Warning, his work is a little bit creepy and scary, but I think a lot of students really like that. But again, he's advocating for awareness so people can kind of understand what people with issues and mental disorders feel like and what they're going through. So he's a really cool artist. And here's some more things about the rule of thirds to kind of just help you out a little bit as you go. All right, good luck. Can't wait to see what you create.